Hello everyone and welcome back to English with the Sings. I'm Mrs. Singh. Today we're looking at the poem To Autumn by John Keats and exploring how we could go about answering a single poem analysis for the EDUCAS GCSE English Literature exam. So the first thing I'll do is read the poem. To Autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the moss cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more, and still more, later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep, drowse with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twinned flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look, thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Ay, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. So the first thing to note is that the poem is addressed to autumn, so it's directly addressing the season of autumn. And this links in with the fact that the poem is an ode. And this is a type of poem that is dedicated to autumn. And is a celebration of the season. And in this way that autumn is addressed directly, that means that it's also personified. So there's personification of autumn. Autumn is like a person in this poem. So when we go about looking at the poem, we want to think about the beginning, middle, and end. So how is nature presented in the beginning, the middle, and the end? Other themes that it could explore are the passing of time or change, but we're going to look at nature. And this is quite simple for this poem because it's a 3-stanza poem, so we can look at stanza 1, the beginning, stanza 2, the middle, and stanza 3, the end. And there is a change here from the beginning to the end, which will allow you to talk about structure and the shift, because at the beginning of the poem, Keats is mainly celebrating the life-giving nature of autumn and its abundance. And we can see that by words such as ripeness and plump and o'erbrimmed, as though it's overflowing. And then we transition into the next stanza, where we are looking at the sort of movement of autumn through the harvest. And then in the end, we are looking at the end of autumn and the coming of winter. So, let's just reread the first stanza again and look at the key things that we might want to pick out. In the single poem analysis, we've only got 20 minutes, so we can't say everything. We want to pick out some of the key areas to discuss or quotations that we could remember. So season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the fat sheaves run, to bend with apples the moss cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. So as I said, there's a lot of ideas in here about abundance. And that kind of just means lots of things. It's almost like the harvest of autumn is sort of overflowing. And it's the first line is always interesting to think about when we look at poetry. So seasons of mist and mellow fruitfulness. So fruitfulness is obviously, it's a bringer of fruit. It provides for people. Mists, however, is interesting because there's some element of potentially mystery and change. Although the word mellow suggests it's quite calm, it's not disruptive. And it's close to the sun, so it's almost as if it's working together with the sun. In fact, conspiring is an interesting word because it can potentially have some negative connotations, that it's kind of secretive. And when you're thinking about learning quotations, remember you can just learn single words, and single words will then allow you to do single word analysis, zooming in. So things like fruitfulness, conspiring, overbrimmed is interesting because it's saying that there is just overflowing. But there is this sense that it makes you think that warm days will never end, that the sort of positive side of autumn will always be there. But we know as the poem progresses that that's not the case. So in the second stanza, let's have a look at that one. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow sound asleep. Drowse with the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swathe with all its twinned flowers. And sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. So in this stanza, we see the passing of time feels quite slow. And the changes are happening quite gradually. Autumn can clearly be seen everywhere, in the store, so where they may be storing the grains from the harvest, on the granary floor where that's sort of collected, in the field that's been the grains have been cut down. And so it's kind of present in the cider press, pressing apples. So it seems that autumn is working hard, although it's also asleep in some cases, or it's careless. So there's a few differences here, or juxtapositions. A particularly interesting line is this bit here, thy hook spares the next swathe, because actually it becomes a bit more sinister. A hook is something that would be used to cut down the grains in the field, like wheat, for example. And a hook, as I said, becomes a bit more sinister, and it could potentially link with the Grim Reaper, somebody who's not just cutting down grain, but also cutting people, linked with death. So there's sort of sinister undertones here of something that's worse that is coming. And here we see this passing of time, the last oozings hours by hours. So the fact that it's the last oozings suggests it's coming to an end. So the last stanza then, we definitely see a change here. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. While barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. So it seems there's a sense of a little bit of mourning going on in this stanza, as though we need to be questioning where is spring, obviously between autumn and spring and winter, which tends to be a season associated with death and lack of life, as obviously the plants die, animals hibernate. It seems like spring has potentially been forgotten here. And we see that the ending is coming with things like the soft dying day, a wailful choir of small gnats mourn. And these suggest the season is dying. This is very interesting here because we've got the gnats. They're taking on this atmosphere of mourning, which is interesting imagery. So there's a sense of loss. And this is kind of mentioned here as well sinking as the light wind lives or dies. The power of nature, really, and it's not really controllable by human beings. And of course, we must think about Keats' context here. So Keats' brother died of tuberculosis, and Keats actually died a year later after writing this poem. So he is aware of kind of ends of life in humans as well as in nature. And then if we look at the very end of this poem, we see the redbreast. So the redbreast is the robin, symbol of winter. And again, like we look at the first line, we think about the last line of the poem, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. And we've got the signal here that the winter's on its way now. And the last line, it potentially suggests that there's a sense of readiness and acceptance. and a sense of the cycle of the seasons, because we know that in winter the birds will fly south, but then they do come back again. So there is an element of hope, of better things to come back again. That like autumn has passed and passed into winter, then spring will come, and then summer and autumn again. And that's really kind of aware in this poem. So in talking about autumn, of course, another important aspect of context is that Keats was a romantic poet, and the Romantics were really celebratory towards nature. They believed that it held a lot of power, and even saw sort of God or the sublime awe in nature, which fits in with this kind of celebration of the season and the personification of the season. So we've got this clear transition from the beginning, the positive side of autumn, the overflowing fruit that it brings, the middle where things are starting to sort of shut down, the harvest is brought in, things are going into hibernation, the time is sort of passing, and then finally where we're looking towards the winter. But there is this awareness, like I said, that it will come back again, although maybe not for Keats. So hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful in analysing the poem. Stay tuned in the channel for the next video, which is going to be looking at comparison. Bye.